Deebo Samuel is one of the most dynamic and threatening wide receivers in the NFL. He plays a role in the San Francisco 49ers offense that is entirely unique. His ability, paired with Kyle Shanahan's tactical genius, has changed the game of football. But how did Deebo go from being a 3-star recruit out of high school to one of the most outstanding wide receivers at the very highest level? Let's take his story all the way back to where it all started. Deebo Samuel, whose full name is Tyson Raekwon Deebo Samuel, grew up in a small town called Inman in South Carolina. But this young kid was balling out even in high school. But before he got to college, Deebo had to face some adversity that led to some tough life lessons. His older brother Quan, who Deebo was super close to, was sentenced to a year in prison for attempted burglary. And just as soon as he finished his sentence, he was back behind bars. Seeing his brother choose this path, Deebo was set on carving a different destiny. He focused all of his energy on football, telling his father that one day he would be playing on the world stage with millions watching on TV. His big dreams led to big plays on the field. His mother even gave him the nickname Sweet Feet because of the way he shifted through defenders to find the end zone. When asked how he was able to easily speed away from tacklers, his reason for doing so was that he just didn't want anybody to hit him. Over the course of his high school career, Deebo caught 166 passes for 2,751 receiving yards and 36 touchdowns, while also posting 899 rushing yards and another 13 touchdowns on the ground. By the time he graduated from Chapman, Deebo had 53 touchdowns to his name, while also picking up just shy of 100 tackles and 12 career interceptions. The young talent was a standout for his school, but he wasn't getting much recognition outside of the state of Carolina. Playing in a small town meant a lot of the country's biggest schools didn't get a chance to see him play. Either that or they just weren't interested. Clemson took a look at him, but Deebo never got an offer, and his choices ended up being between 3 programs in his home state. On signing day, Deebo had hats on the table for both South and North Carolina, and picked up the Gamecocks hat with a smile on his face as he announced his commitment to the South Carolina football program. The world didn't know Deebo just yet, but in time, they would soon find out who he was. Deebo redshirted his freshman year in 2014 and would have to wait for his dream of playing on TV to come to life. And the following year, he would finally get his wish. In week 1 of the 2015 season, Deebo finally got out on the field against North Carolina, but it wasn't the dream start to his career that he'd been hoping for. He fumbled the ball and suffered an injury with a strained hamstring and would end up coming out of the game without catching a single ball. The weeks that followed were just as bad, putting up forgettable numbers that led to an even worse injury that kept Deebo on the sidelines for 9 weeks. But he made it back in time to play the undefeated, number 1 ranked team in the country, the Clemson Tigers. With all eyes on Clemson, Deebo Samuel was able to make a name for himself. He'd been sidelined for the majority of the season, but led the Gamecocks in receiving yards with 5 catches for 104 yards and his first ever college football touchdown.
Touchdown Carolina! Touchdown Deebo Samuel!
That game had Gamecocks fans anticipating what Deebo Samuel might be able to do for the following season, and he was ready to break out. But once again, Samuel was met with a brick wall of adversity. In week 2 of the 2016 season, pulling up while chasing a deep ball, Deebo was immediately clutching at his hamstring and gesturing to the sideline. He'd pulled it again for the second year in a row, and this time, the injury made him question whether he even wanted to keep going. He missed 3 weeks while he rehabbed his hamstring, and after facing a mental battle with his body seemingly letting him down, Deebo bounced back. When he came back that year, he delivered. 90 yards against Georgia in his first game back, 106 against UMass, 83 against Tennessee, and 125 against Missouri. Deebo was rolling, and the Gamecocks bowled the game that year. At the end of the season, he set new career highs with 14 catches for 190 receiving yards and a touchdown. Momentum was behind him now, and as he headed into the 2017 season, Deebo was a crucial part of the Gamecocks offense. And he got off to a hot start in week 1 with 83 yards and 2 touchdowns against North Carolina State. He was on fire, and in week 3 against Kentucky with 122 yards and a touchdown to his name, but in a moment of horrible luck, completely out of his control, Deebo fractured his fibula, and his season was over. The young man who had told his father back in high school that he wanted to play on TV and compete at the highest level had all the talent to live out his dream. And when he got on the field, he showed it in every rep for the Gamecocks, but injuries were ripping that dream away from him. 2015 hamstring, 2016 another pulled hamstring, 2017 fractured fibula. Every time he showed the nation just how good he could be, he was dragged right back down to earth. Deebo would miss the remainder of the 2017 season and had to fight through rehab all over again. Once again, battling demons that came with rehab of a lower leg injury. Only this time, the rehab was way more prolonged, more painful, and more challenging than ever. Now in his 5th year at South Carolina, The 2018 year was a crucial year in Deebo Samuel's plan for himself. He wanted to be great, and the NFL was a very real possibility for him, but he needed to be on the field and be able to showcase his talents for an entire season to get the recognition he deserved. His loved ones held their breath as he retook the field in week 1 of the 2018 season, and finally, his prayers were answered. Deebo had an utterly healthy year, playing the entire season for the Gamecocks and getting better and better as the season went on. During a 3-game stretch from week 11 to 13, Deebo managed 3 100-plus yard games in a row. 120 yards against Florida, 112 and a touchdown against Chattanooga, and yet another sensational performance against Clemson, posting 210 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns on the night. That game showed the world who he was and gave the NFL a game tape to watch that would give their franchises something to think about. Deebo had managed just 5 touchdowns in the first 3 seasons of his college career, but in 2018, he put up 822 receiving yards in a tremendous second half of the season, recording 11 touchdowns in the process. Next stop, the NFL Draft. The 2019 NFL Draft was not considered to be one of the strongest for wide receivers. It was a defensive-focused first round with guys like Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams, edge rusher Josh Allen, and linebacker Devin White, all looking like first-round early selections. Deebo's injury history and lack of stats that would jump off the page made him quite the question mark as the draft week came around. But there was one particular offense that saw a skill set in him that would be the perfect fit for their scheme. When the phone rang, it was the 36th pick in the early second round of the draft. And it was Josh Lynch's voice who came on the phone to congratulate Deebo Samuel on becoming the latest member of the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan arrived as the team's head coach in 2017 with an offensive scheme that encouraged motion, commotion, and versatility in the weapons he deployed out on the field. Deebo was a third wide receiver, selected behind Marquise Brown and N'Keal Harry, and would become a key addition to the 49ers as they rebuilt their franchise. Nick Bosa was selected in the first round, and San Francisco was about to flip that thing around in the most emphatic way. Deebo Samuel immediately was a key piece of the offense. In week 2 of his rookie season, he broke out with 5 passes for 86 yards and a touchdown against the Cincinnati Bengals, and he'd continue on for 3 100-plus receiving yard games in that season. He finished the regular season with 802 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Niners went from a 4-12 record, complete trash, to a 13-3 record, dominating their opposition and coasting into the postseason. He was also used effectively on the ground, proving the theory that he matched the skill set Kyle Shanahan was looking for. In fact, Deebo's ability to take the football out of the backfield and create explosive plays is one of the things that makes him so unique in the NFL. His size and speed could easily confuse you into believing he's a genuine running back, and he has proven that he can be a dangerous weapon for the Niners in carrying the football. The last of his 3 rushing touchdowns came via an end around against the Seattle Seahawks. Deebo came from right to left and cut down the sideline with the football, gliding through the defense almost untouched to find the end zone on an explosive play. The Niners scouting department had done a great job in matching his skill set to their scheme, and now that perfect pairing was showing up on tape. San Francisco went from one of the worst teams in football the year before to a contender in 2019 and marched all the way to Super Bowl 54 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Deebo had told his father he wanted to play on TV, and now he was going to play in the biggest game of the year in front of millions of fans. Unfortunately for the Niners, it wasn't meant to be on the night. But Deebo caught 5 balls for 39 yards in the game and scampered for 53 rushing yards, doing what he does best as a multi-dimensional talent at the highest level. The following season wasn't great for him. The hamstring injuries were back and cost him almost half of the season, with 2 separate instances taking him off the field for weeks at a time. But then the 2021 season came back, and it felt like the season that wrapped all the anguish, frustration, injury setbacks, and pain together and crushed it all at once. Not many had faced adversity like Deebo Samuel had, but he never quit, and in 2021, he made himself a whole lot of money. In week 1 of the 2021 season, Deebo Samuel caught 9 passes for 189 yards and a touchdown against the Detroit Lions, and that set the tone for the entire year. By the second half of the season, the Niners had started lining him up as a genuine tailback, running an outside zone scheme that gave him the opportunity to break through the line and take off for big gains. Then on the very next drive, he'd catch a slant and house it. Everything was coming together, and Deebo was the complete package. He's fast, physical, shifty, and there's not another player in the league quite like him. Nobody was doing anything close to what he was doing that year. By the end of the regular season, he'd managed 1,405 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns, as well as 365 rushing yards and 8 more touchdowns on the ground. In the postseason, he was influential in the Niners' run to the conference championship game, with 10 carries for a combined 82 receiving yards and 111 rushing yards against the Cowboys and Packers in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Deebo was voted a first-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler, having posted over 2,000 all-purpose yards as well as returning kicks for the Niners. His peers voted him 19th on the NFL Top 100 list after one of the most unique seasons any wide receiver has ever had in the league. In the summer of 2022, following a complex back and forth over a contract extension, Deebo signed a 3-year deal with the Niners worth up to $73.5 million with $41 million guaranteed. After everything he'd been through and the battles he faced to make it back on the field each and every time he was knocked down, he finally got what he was worth. He's one of the 49ers' most influential playmakers, playing in a system that's absolutely perfect for him. Kyle Shanahan's attention to details and complex offense affords Deebo so many unique opportunities to be great, and there's not another team in the league that could maximize his potential the way San Francisco has. Guys who work with him, Shanahan himself, fullback Kyle Juszczyk, tight end George Kittle, and run game coordinator turned Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel all have countless levels of praises for him, and there's still so much more to come from Sweet Feet Deebo Samuel. Hey, you made it to the end. If you enjoyed the video, we'd appreciate a subscribe. We'd love for you to join us on the path to 1 million subscribers. And in the meantime, if you have a player in mind that you'd love for us to do a story on, we'd love to do it. Just drop it in the comments. And we appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you for watching The Halftime Show.